commas in a series. Our objective for today is I can use commas to separate a series of items. A series of items is when we have 3 or more words that come one after another in a sentence, and it's kind of like a list. So we have a sentence on the screen that says, Jen has a pencil, a book, and a crayon. The list of items that she has, or the series, is a pencil, a book, and a crayon. In this sentence, you can see there are commas that help us separate all of those 3 items. So again, when we have a series or a list of 3 or more items, we can use commas to separate them.
Make sure you're watching the
So
video while you're listening.
We have to think about where we're going to put the commas.
Sorry, please tilt your screen down.
When you have a series of items, a comma is going to go after each item on the list, except the last one. So we're going to give an example now that we know that rule. The example says, Charlie wanted to eat pizza, ice cream, and chips. Now, I know that there's a series of items here. I see pizza, ice cream, and chips. All 3 words come one after another. It sounds like a list. When I have a list, I need to put a comma after each one, except the last one. So here's what that might look like. I can see I've added a comma after pizza and ice cream. But since chips is at the end of the sentence, I just put a period to end it. Now let's talk about the placement of a series. A series of items can go anywhere in our sentence. It could go at the beginning, the middle, or the end. Now we're going to see how a sentence could look different with a series at the beginning, middle, or end of the sentence. So our first example has our series at the very end of the sentence. This is just like the first example we did. It says, I love to read historical fiction, mysteries, and biographies. So I know the 3 things in this list, or this series, are historical fiction, mysteries, and biographies. I'm going to remember the rule that there's a comma after every item except the last one. So I know I'm going to have to put a comma after historical fiction and mysteries. Let's do another one. This is an example with the series at the beginning of the sentence. This time, I'm going to read the sentence and I want you to pause and see if you can figure out where the commas go. The sentence says, basketball, baseball, and tennis are my favorite sports to play. Take a moment to think about where the commas might go in this sentence.
So you need to be thinking this. Where do you think the commas go in this sentence?
Great job. Since this is a series of 3 items again, we have basketball, baseball, and tennis. We know that there's not going to be a comma after the last one. There does have to be a comma after basketball and baseball.
So notice, no comma after tennis.
Now we have one more that we're going to practice, and this one is in the middle of a sentence. Same thing, I'm going to read it. You can pause your video and see if you can figure out where the commas will go in this sentence. I packed sunscreen, towels, and water for our beach trip.
Where do they go?
Great job. So since our series is in the middle of the sentence, we know we won't need a punctuation mark after the last word because there's still words that come after it. But remember, we need to put commas after the other 2 words.
So notice.
So there's going to be a word after sunscreen,
No
or
comma.
a comma after sunscreen, and a comma after towels.
But nothing after water.
Thanks for following along with our font.
Okay. Sadie? So, like we saw in the video, today's grammar lesson is going to be about items in a series. So, at the top of a new clean page in your grammar notebook, write the title of today's lesson, items in a series. Underline it because it's the title. Remember, items needs to be capitalized and series needs to be capitalized. N and A are not capitalized. So what does that tell you about N and A? Victoria? They're not important words. And then today's date, September 30th, 2020. Yes, Sadie, make sure that you're listening when I'm speaking.
Items is not a separate word, correct?
No. Oh, sorry. No, it's not items. It's just one word. There's extra space there. So, items in a series. There's not much we have to do as far as notes because we have to use a comma between, so your pink dot should be right by the pink line, your little dot should be right by the pink line, your bullet point. And then we're going to have a sentence. Use a comma between not between, erase between. Use a comma after each item in a series of three or more, except the last item. So when you have a series of 3 or more items, you use a comma between each one except the last one. So for example, we saw llamas, comma, zebras, comma, and monkeys at the zoo. Now again, just like with reading, whenever you're copying from the board, check each individual word. Not the whole thing, check each individual word and punctuation mark to make sure that A, you have it, and B, it is spelled right. Do not forget punctuation in this lesson. The whole point of this lesson is to learn how to punctuate items in a series. So these commas are extremely important today. Yes, Kingston? Okay, then use a different pencil. Okay, so you see, we have 1, 2, 3 items in this series. We have a comma after each one. 1, 2, except the last. Because we know we use a comma after each item in a series of 3 or more, except the last item. We do not put a comma after the last item in a series, no matter what. Does everybody understand that? We would not put a comma after the last item in a series of 3 or more. So for example, we saw llamas, zebras, and monkeys at the zoo. That's 3 items: llamas, zebras, monkeys. So we have a comma after the first item and the second item, but not the last item. So what do you notice? How many objects do we have? How many items do we have in this sentence? Carla?
3.
3. How many commas do we have, Carla?
2.
So that means you will always have 1 less comma in that series than you do items. Victoria?
But if you only have 2 animals or an item.
Wait, hold that thought. Hold that thought. So if I have 4 items in my series, in my sentence, how many commas am I going to have? Aaron?
3.
If I have 27 items in my series, I wouldn't do that, but say I did, because that would be a super long run-on sentence, but just say I did. If I had 27 items in my series in my sentence, how many commas would I have? Michaela? 26. So you're going to end up with 1 less comma than you have items because you don't put a comma after the last item. Why do I have 1 less comma than items in my sentences? Why do I have 1 less comma than items in my sentences with items in a series? Aaron?
Because the last one, it doesn't need a comma because there's not something else coming after.
Good. Because whatever the last item is does not need a comma. Carla, hand down. Make sure you're listening. Because the last item, whatever it is, doesn't need a comma after it because there's no more items coming left. How can I tell? How do you think I can tell which item is the last one? What do you think it's going to have before it? Smith?
The word and.
So it's going to have a conjunction. It could be and, it could be or, I think it could be but I don't think you'll see that. It could be and, it could be or, because what if my sentence has 3 or more options? Would I have and? You can go to the store, the playground, or the mall. Would I still have commas in that series? Yeah, I would have 2. I would have one after the store, after the playground, but not after the mall. So sometimes you'll have a conjunction. That's how you'll know that's the last item in the series, because you will see a conjunction. Yes, Zadie.
But you have to be careful because in the past years I've done this, and I haven't done it this year, but I put and then something and then something.
Because do you really need to do that?
No.
No. You don't need to put we saw llamas and zebras and monkeys at the zoo, because that and over and over again starts to get boring and almost even a little annoying if you're trying to read it. So you don't need and between each one. You only need and between the second to last one and the last one. So you only need and or between the last 2 items in your series. You don't need and or every time. Now, this says use a comma after each item in a series of 3 or more, except the last item. How did I write that? Zari?
In capital letters.
With a... Sorry.
What did you say?
With a what? With a what? So in all capital letters with a...
And it's underlined.
And it's underlined. So how should you write this? Zari?
The same way as you did.
All capitals with an underline. Do not use a comma to separate items in a list of 2. Do not use a comma to separate items in a list of 2. See why I stopped you, Victoria? Only 3 or more. For example, we ate pizza and ice cream. We only have 2 items. We have pizza, which is 1 item, and ice cream, which is 2. So I do not need a comma. Bless you. Bless you. Okay, I'll give you a second because I need to erase these so that I can fit the next thing, the next thing to know, thing to watch for, thing to do. Okay, so the next thing to know, we know how to use commas. Well now, what other important thing did we have? A conjunction. So, put another little bullet point by the pink line. You're finished? Okay. Put another little bullet point by the pink line. You can skip a line because we are talking about a new thing within items in the series. What? Did somebody say something at home?
Yeah, that's before you said it, can we skip a line?
Okay, yes, you can skip a line because this is a new thing, but it still has to do with items in a series. Write a conjunction. In our case, as 4th graders learning this lesson today, we're just going to use and or. So write a conjunction before the last item in the series. Write a conjunction, in our case today as 4th graders, and or before the last item in the series. Only there. Otherwise you just end up with way too many. So we don't want to say we saw llamas and lions and zebras and monkeys and birds and pandas and camels at the zoo. That would end up being like, somebody who's reading it would be like, oh my gosh, stop saying and. I get it. You only need it once. So write a conjunction such as and or before the last item in the series. Did you have a question, Kingston? Okay, I already answered it? Okay. Make sure to include a comma before, and underline before, the conjunction. Make sure to include a comma before the conjunction, comma, not after. So you have to write a conjunction, either and or before the last item in the series. Make sure to include a comma before the conjunction, not after. For example, we read books, played outside, and swam in the pool today. We read books, played outside, and swam in the pool today. I'll give you a minute to finish writing that. So let's look at this sentence. We read books, played outside, and swam in the pool today. Well, I have my first, wait, this isn't an item, it's an action. So are we always talking about items in a series? No, we could also be talking about actions, because read books is our first action. Played outside is our second action. Swam in the pool is the third action. But just because they're actions, not items, we still follow the same rule. Even though in this sentence we're talking about actions, not items, we still follow the same rule. We have 1, 2, 3 actions. So we have a comma after the first one, after the second one, before the conjunction, but not after the last item. Remember, your comma goes before the conjunction, not after. Also, does it go right before the word and or right after the word outside? Cullen.
Right before outside. After outside.
See, do you see how just accidentally saying one wrong word completely changes what we're saying? You put it right after the word before the conjunction. You don't put it in the front of the conjunction like that. You don't do that. It goes at the end of the word before the conjunction, whatever that word is. Okay. Now we're going to do the guided practice. That's really all the notes that we have. Remember, use a comma after each item in a series of 3 or more, except the last item. Do not use a comma to separate a list of 2. Write a conjunction in 4th grade, and or before the last item in the series. Not anywhere else. Don't keep repeating and or. It gets boring. Make sure to include a comma before the conjunction, not after. Remember, however many items are in your series or actions are in your series, you're going to have one less comma. Why is that? Why are you going to end up with one less comma than items or actions in your series? Zari? Did you answer this question before? Or did somebody else?
I did.
Okay, let me get somebody else who didn't answer this question yet. Michaela, why are we going to have one less comma than items or actions in our series, in our sentence? Okay, well, we have to do that no matter what. But why do we only have why do we have one less comma than we do items or actions in our series in a sentence? Zadie?
Because there's nothing after it.
After what?
After the last the last thing you're naming.
After the last, there is no comma after the last item or action. Yes.
I think I answered that. Yeah.
Oh well. Zari may have answered a very similar question. So, that's okay. So, again, commas after each item in a series except the last in a series of 3 or more. So it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. By the time it gets to 8, you may want to think, I think I'm putting too much in one sentence. This is turning into a little bit of a run-on sentence. Let me back up a little. You need a conjunction like and or before the last item or action, because is it always going to be items? No, sometimes it could be actions. Put the comma before the conjunction, not after. Do not put a comma after the last item. I'm not going to say third item because what if you have 4 items in the series? Do you need a comma after the third one? If there are 4 items, listen to my question, please. This is exactly why I didn't want to say this, because you're not listening to my question. You're thinking, okay, I don't put a comma after the third. But what if I have 4 items? Would I put a comma after the third item? Carla?
Yes.
Yes, because say I have this sentence. Go ahead and do it. My favorite things are reading books. I'm not going to put any commas. Eating food. Watching TV. Look at how I wrote TV. Make sure you write it the same way. Those are 2 capitals with periods between because TV is an abbreviation. My favorite things are reading books, eating food, watching TV, and going for walks. My favorite things are reading books, eating food, watching TV, and going for walks. Cullen, do I have items or actions in this series, in this sentence? Do I have items, which are things, like pizza, ice cream, pizza, whatever? Or do I have actions?
You have.
Like read books, played outside, swam in the pool.
You have action.
I have actions. What are my actions? Tell me what each action is.
Reading books.
Reading books is the first action.
Eating food.
Eating food is the second action.
Watching TV.
Watching TV is the third action.
Going for a walk.
Going for walks is the fourth action. Where do my commas go, Cullen?
After the word book.
After the word books. That's the end of my first action.
After the word food.
After the word food, because why does it not go after eating? Is that the whole action, Cullen?
No.
No, eating food is the whole action. Otherwise, I would have reading books, eating food, watching TV, and is food an action?
No.
No, I'm using commas to separate actions, not items. You're always going to use them to separate actions or items, not both. So if you have actions, you need to have a verb, usually with a noun. Okay? Where else? Anywhere?
Watching TV.
Where does it go?
After the word TV.
After the word TV. Because, wait, I thought I never put a comma after the third item. But did I ever say that, Cullen?
Nope.
No, we just only had a series of 3. Well, now we have a series of 4. So yes, I do have to put a comma after the third. Do I put a comma after the fourth?
Nope.
Because I never put a comma after which action or item, Cullen?
The last.
The last. Whether it's the third item, the fourth item, the 6th item, the 17th item, whatever. The only action or item that does not have a comma at the end is the very last one. Doesn't matter what number it is. The last one. Okay, so now we have guided practice. Okay, so before we begin, what's should we always look for on every single sheet that I give you? What should we always look for? Smith.
A box.
A
with
box. Do we
information
have a
in it.
box with information here, Smith?
Yes.
Should we ignore it and say, I don't got time for that. I want to finish first. I want to be done. I don't want to do this.
No.
No. So, Smith, go ahead and read us that first bullet point.
A comma tells the reader to pause between the words that it separates.
Good. So remember, I told you this when we were reading. Anytime you see a comma, you take a short little pause. Not like a pause when you see a period, but just a short little breath. Like, and then keep going. So like when we had the sentence about the zoo. We saw llamas, zebras, and monkeys at the zoo. So do you hear that little pause? Usually anytime you're speaking or reading and you hear a natural pause, that's where you're going to put a comma, even without even noticing it. When you notice that without even realizing, that's where a comma is. When you're speaking or reading and you hear a little pause, not a big one like the end of a thought, which would be a period, but just a little, you put a comma there. Okay, thank you, Smith. Read the next bullet point, Carla.
Use comma to separate 3 or more words in a series.
So are we going to use a comma to separate 2 items in a series? No. If we only have 1 item, well, it's not even a series, so we wouldn't worry about a comma at all. Carla, read us the example. Make sure to put a little pause wherever those commas are. Not a huge one, just a little pause.
Yes, ma'am. Example. We enjoy mountains, trees, and little clouds in the park.
Okay, Carla, listen to this. Listen to that sentence. Go ahead and mute yourself. And then listen to this sentence because you did skip some words and you changed some words. Listen to how I say it. Listen to the words. We enjoy the mountains, the trees, and the clouds in the park. So do you notice how I just had a little pause? Not, we enjoy the mountains, the trees, and the clouds in the park. We just said we enjoy the mountains, the trees, and the clouds in the park. So don't put too long of a pause. Then people will think, oh, your thought's over. Now I can start speaking. But no, you still had more to say. Okay, Carla. Thank you, Carla. Michaela, read the last bullet point. Louder.
Do not use a comma after the last word in a sentence.
Not in a sentence.
In a series.
In a series. So do not use a comma after the last word in a series. Does it say the third word in a series? No, it says the last word. So what we're going to do, we're going to rewrite the sentences below by adding commas where they belong. So first what we have to do is we have to find out, okay, how many items or how many actions. Then we can put our commas. So number 1, he fed, milked, and groomed the cows. Ethan, do we have items or actions in this sentence?
We have action.
Actions. What's our first action?
He filled, he said, no.
Just tell me the action. Just the word or words that says the action. Fed. Does it say them? Does it say them after fed? No. So there's our first action. What's our next action? Is that the next one? What's the next one? We have he fed. That's the first. He fed them. What's the next action? Is that the next thing he did?
No.
What was the next thing he did after he fed them? What comes next? Who can help Ethan out? Victoria.
Milk.
Do you see that, Ethan? Milked, as in he got milk from them. So our second action is what, Ethan? Milked. What's our next action? Groomed. How can we tell that's the last action without even continuing? What do we see right before it? And where does the conjunction go? At the beginning of the actions or before the last one? Before the last one. So now, Ethan, we need to rewrite this sentence and we need to put a comma at the end of each action or item. So I want you to say the sentence out loud. If you get to where there's a comma, you need to say the word comma out loud. So Ethan, how do we write that sentence? What about after fed? Isn't that our first action? So don't we need a comma? Yes, so start again. What do you have to say when you get to where there should be a comma? Comma. Good.
Miss Rose,
Yes.
you could get mixed up like he fed milk.
It's-
You could try to change the ed on milk. Fed milk.
But
You
is that
make
what
it
it says?
fed.
Can we just
No.
take the ed off and say he fed milk?
No.
No. So you have to pay attention and read closely because the sentence should say he fed, comma, milked, comma, and groomed the cows, period. I cannot say it enough. I can't keep saying this. Put a capital letter at the beginning. Put a period at the end. A first grader can do that. That means a fourth grader should have been doing it for 3 years now and should not even question capital at the beginning and punctuation at the end. If I see that on your paper, I'm going to start giving it back. You don't get to redo it. You get a 0. Because I can't keep saying and doing and commenting the same things every single time for you to not listen to me. It has been 9 weeks that we've been in school. That has been a rule since our very first grammar lesson on Monday of week 2. So it is no longer acceptable. It is unacceptable. It is a 0. So look at your paper right now. Do you have a capital at the beginning? Do you have end punctuation at the end? Do you have every single word that was in this sentence? Because some of you are turning in stuff that says he fed, milked, and groomed. And then you don't finish rewriting the rest of the sentence. That will be 0. Here you go. Take it back. I'm done with it. Stop being lazy. You have to. Because you're not learning a thing. Because you're just trying to get done and be lazy. Number 2. Thank you, Ethan. Go to the store and get flour, eggs, and sugar. Carla, do we have a series of items or a series of actions in this sentence?
We have a series of items.
Items, good. What are those items? What's the first one?
The first item is flour.
Flour.
The second item is eggs.
Good.
The third item is sugar.
Good. Do we have any more than 3?
No.
How can you tell right away, just by looking at that sugar's the last one?
I tell it was the last one because there's an N in front of sugar.
Very good. Now, Carla, we're going to rewrite that sentence. So what you need to do is you need to tell me exactly what that sentence should say. When you get to a place where there should be a comma, you need to say the word comma out loud. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what should that sentence say? Don't forget to say comma out loud when you get to a place where there should be one.
Go to the store and get flour, comma, eggs, comma, and sugar.
And what should be at the end?
Period.
Good. Go to the store and get flour, comma, eggs, comma, and sugar, period. Why do we not have a comma between store and? Victoria.
Because
What do we not see after the word and? A second what? Anybody can answer this question. Carla, what do we not see another one after and?
We do not see another item.
Nope. Zari.
Comma.
Nope. Guys, to put a comma before and, but, or, we must have a subject and a predicate before and after that conjunction. We have, listen, this is why you guys continue to get the answers wrong, because you're just tuning me out. Put your legs under your desk. You don't need to see what's going on over here. Only what's going on up here and on your desk. When we have go to the store, that's that understood you. So you is the subject, go to the store is the predicate. After the word and, do we have another subject? Do we have another person, place, thing, or idea? Zadie?
no.
No, we do have another predicate, get flour, eggs, and sugar. We would only put a comma before that and if we had another subject. We don't. If we had another subject, you have to put a comma. Some of you keep losing these points because you're not paying attention to the comments. You're just ignoring them and putting it away in order to be finished and move on to the next thing. You have got to stop. You have got to pay attention to your mistakes so that you don't make them again. Otherwise, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And then when you're applying for a job and you don't have it, that boss is going to be like, wow, this person has no idea how to write. So nope. And there goes your dream job. Because you don't know how to write, because you did not listen in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Number 3, Mexico, Ireland, and China are 3 countries that I have visited. Kingston, do we have items or actions in this series, in this sentence? Items. What are the items? Loud. Tell me one at a time, please. What's the first?
Mexico.
Mexico is the first. What's the next one?
Ireland.
Ireland is the second. What's the next one?
China.
Is that the last one?
And.
Well, do you need to tell me, is and an item, part of the item? No, we just know China's the last one because we see and. Okay, so Kingston, now I need to rewrite it. I figured out my items. I have more than 2, so that means I need commas. Reread the sentence. Make sure to say the word comma whenever we get to a place where there must be a comma.
Mexico, comma, Ireland, comma, and China are 3 countries that I visited.
Good. Mexico, comma, Ireland, comma, and China are 3 countries I have visited. Period. Check your sentences. Do you have a capital at the beginning? Do you have a period at the end? Some of you need to really work on making your handwriting a lot smaller so that you can fit it. Smith, number 4. We have bring wood, nails, and a hammer. Do we have items or actions?
Items.
What are those items? What's the first?
Wood,
What's the next one?
nails,
The next one?
and a hammer.
Is and part of the item?
No.
No. So what's the next one?
Hammer.
Hammer. You can say a hammer because that does include, but and is not part of the item. It's just letting us know that the hammer is the last item. So Smith, how do we rewrite this sentence? Make sure to say the word comma when you get to where a comma should be.
Bring wood, comma, nails, comma, and a hammer.
Good. Bring
Period.
wood, comma, nails, comma, and a hammer, period. Good. Next one, we have mules, horses, and pigs on our ranch. Zari, do we have actions or items?
I don't.
What's the first item?
Muse.
What is that word?
Mules.
Mules. There's our first item. Next item.
Horses.
Horses. There's our second item, and the next item.
Pigs.
Do we have any more?
No.
No. Okay, how do we rewrite that sentence? Make sure to tell me out loud where the commas go.
We have mules, comma, horses, comma, and pigs on our ranch. Period.
Good. We have mules, comma, horses, comma, and pigs on our ranch. Period. Okay, number 6. This city feels dirty, strange, and lonely. Cullen, do we have items or actions?
Actions.
Is there something that we can do or that somebody did in this sentence? Can anybody? Can anybody do anything in this sentence?
No.
No. What are the items? What's the first one?
Dirt.
What does that say? Doesn't say dirt.
Dirty.
Dirty,
Strange.
strange. Next one?
Lonely.
Lonely. How do we rewrite that sentence? Make sure to say the word comma when you get to where there should be a comma.
This city feels dirty, strange. Wait.
Start.
This city feels dirty, comma, strange, comma, and lonely.
Good. This city feels dirty, comma, strange, comma, and lonely. Okay, number 7. Mosquitoes, spiders, and ants annoyed us. Victoria, do we have items or actions?
We have items.
What are the items?
Mosquitoes, spiders, and
Wait, tell me one at a time.
mosquitoes,
There's the first one. Next one.
spiders,
It's our second item.
ants.
There's our third item. Any more?
No.
No. How do we write that sentence? Make sure to say comma out loud wherever a comma should go.
Mosquitoes, comma, spiders, comma, and ants annoyed us. Period.
Good. Mosquitoes, comma, spiders, comma, and ants annoyed us. Okay, number 8. I brought my diary, my pencil, and an eraser. Zadie, do we have items or actions?
Item.
What are the items? Tell me the word that tells which one, too.
My diary, my pencil.
One at a time.
My diary.
My diary is the first one. We need that word my, otherwise, do we know whose diary it is?
No.
Not necessarily. Next one.
My pencil.
My pencil. That's our next item.
An eraser.
An eraser. Not and eraser, but an eraser. Good, Zadie, because an eraser tells me which eraser. An eraser. How do we write that, Zadie? Make sure that you tell me that you say the word comma out loud.
I brought my diary, comma, my pencil, comma, and my eraser.
I brought my diary, comma, my pencil, comma, and an eraser, period. Number 9, my mother, father, and brother are coming along. Michaela, do we have items or actions? Is there something that you can do? Are there multiple things you can do in this sentence?
No.
So are there actions? What?
No.
So what do we have?
Items.
Please pay attention to that before you just say an answer. What are the items? Tell me one at a time. Mother is the first. We don't have to include my because we don't have a different one every time. Father is our next item. Brother is our next item. Do we have any more? No. How do we rewrite this sentence? Make sure to say the word comma wherever we put a comma.
My mother, father, and brother are coming along.
Good. My mother, comma, father, comma, and brother are coming along. Period. Number 10. I miss the house, my dog, and our friends. Aaron, do we have items or actions?
Items.
Items. What are they? Tell me which ones, too.
The house.
The house.
My dog.
My dog.
Or our friends.
Our friends. So how do we write that sentence?
I miss the house, comma, my dog, comma, and our friends.
I miss the house, comma, my dog, comma, and our friends. Okay, so everybody use this guided practice. Use your notes to help you. Make sure that you are thinking before you write. Some of you are just writing to get done. Think, use your notes. Say, is this right before you write? Okay, we don't have time to do the independent practice right now, but I do want to go over it. So girls at home, go ahead and get out your independent practice. It's 2 pages. Now everybody, there's a box. So what should you do? Read it. Then the directions say rewrite. So read these directions while I read them out loud. Rewrite each sentence. Use capital letters at the beginning of sentences and proper nouns. So that means nothing is capitalized. You not only have to capitalize the first letter, but there will sometimes be proper nouns. So you need to look for those proper nouns too and capitalize those. Make sure I can tell the difference between lowercase and capital on your paper. Otherwise, I'm going to count it as wrong. If I can't tell whether you have a capital letter or a lowercase letter, I will count it as wrong. Because you are in the 4th grade. You know capital and lowercase. So you need to show that in your writing. Then it says, end each sentence with the correct punctuation mark. Is that always going to be a period? No. What if it's a question? What do you need to put at the end? Smith.
A question mark.
What if it is good? What if it's something that you would say with excitement? Michaela. An exclamation point. What about any other type of sentence? Zadie?
A period.
A period. So those are part of your points. Capitalizing the correct words. Ethan, are you listening? Kingston, are you listening? Capitalizing the correct words. That means beginning of the sentence and proper nouns. If there are no proper nouns, are you going to capitalize anything other than the first letter of the sentence? No, there will not be proper nouns every time. You have to figure out, is this a proper noun? Is it a specific name of a person, place, or thing? Or is it just a common noun? You have to put end punctuation. So does it need a period? Does it need a question mark? Does it need an exclamation point? Then the last part of the directions, add commas to separate the items or phrases in a series. What they mean by or phrases means there are some actions. Like when we said swam in the pool. That's not just a word. There's like 4 words, but that was one of them. Going for a walk. That's one action, but it's a phrase. So you might see something like that. So pay close attention to each individual action or item and put a comma. Okay, that's your independent practice. It's just the same on the front and the back. It's the same directions on the back. It just continues. So when you rewrite these sentences, use correct capitalization. Make sure I can tell the difference between your capitals and your lowercase letters. Use correct end punctuation. Punctuate the items in the series. Sometimes you may have more than 3. Sometimes you may only have 3. You will not have only 2. So pay close attention. This is something that you cannot rush through. Make sure you write every single word. Do not leave out words. Otherwise, I will count it wrong. And you will lose every single point that you could have gotten for that sentence. Do not change words. Spell them right. They are right here, right above. Spell each word correctly. That might mean that at the end you need to go and say, okay, does we match? Yep. Does will match? Yep. Does need match? Yep. Does clubs match? Yep. Does balls match? Yep. Does and match? Yep. Does tees match? Yep. Does to match? Does play match? Yep. Does golf match? Got it. You might have to do that. That may take a minute. Does that mean that you shouldn't be doing it or that you're doing it wrong? No. Effort, not time. I could care less who finishes first. I don't care at all. What I do care about is, did you finish it correctly? Did you follow all the directions? Did you pay attention? Did you use your tools to make sure you were doing it right? Did you check? When you turn this into the tray, it should be because you are confident that you got a 100. You did it right the first time. You checked. You used your tools. You did everything you should have done, and you are confident you will get a 100. Now, you may not always get a 100, but you better believe when you put that in that tray that you are ending up with a 100. If you don't think, I don't think I got a 100, well, then you're not done yet. Okay. Put your independent practice and your guided practice in your return to school so that you can use your guided practice. Then clear your desk.